got hit, and it was a hit and run, and they never found, the guy or person or whoever. And that was definitely hard at first to let go. And I'm a Christian, and I believed it was God giving me my second chance at life. All of a sudden, the only thing that mattered was my family, my friends, and my cats, and that's it.
Carolyn Sophia Scourin shares her journey.
From struggling with mental health issues
to finding purpose
after a life-threatening accident.
I've had more nice comments about my book than negative. So I don't focus on the negative. Even if everyone doesn't like you, you know what? I don't care if people don't like us, because I have you guys, and you guys are everything to me. Like, my best friends, like, we would all die for each other. Like, that is how, like, much of a bond we have. I remember my therapist taught me the which is the method. And basically I started doing it whenever I would like panic. So basically, like, you just stop and then you go 1, and then you go 2, and then you go.
Welcome to It's Your Choice podcast. Today on the show, we have Carolyn Sophia. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So, Carolyn, you were involved in a life-threatening car accident. And I do want to talk about that. But before we get into what happened and how that changed your life, let's go back a little bit and talk about what life was like before the accident.
Okay. Well, that's a lot. It's definitely was a hard, so I grew up with anxiety and depression, and unfortunately I self-harmed a lot in high school and a bit in college. And I just was not coping with life in a healthy way. I have the most supportive, loving family, but yet every time I left my house, I always just felt like an outsider, and I always felt like I just never fit in anywhere. So I, was really always struggling with socially. I got bullied really badly when I was a kid. When I was in middle school, and then in high school, I just didn't fit in. And then when I was a sophomore, I found out that I have a learning disability, which is called Nonverbal Learning Disability. So you're highly verbal and you are like good with people, but you struggle with conceptual skills. Math and science were always really hard for me. And just like all of that was very hard. So I also kind of found out I had my learning disability because I had a bunch of tutors for different classes and I wasn't doing well. So that's when I took the neuropsych test, and that's when told me that I had my learning disability. And so then when I was a sophomore in high school, literally my second semester sophomore year, I was at boarding school for kids with learning disabilities.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
And do you think that the boarding school had a positive or negative impact on you? Because everybody's experience is different, right? So I like, how did, because I'm, for me, there's kind of two parts to that. Would be the educational part of it, but then you're away from home. And when you already have your anxiety and those issues, like, how was going to boarding school for you?
Honestly, it was really hard. It was always something that I, watched Zoe 101 as a kid, and I was like, oh, that'd be so cool to go to a boarding school. Nothing like that.
Right.
And when I went to boarding school, it was always like, oh, what'd you do to get shipped out? I was like, no. My parents were about to move to Connecticut because we just needed to do it for my education so that I would get into college. So it really kind of came down to my future and what would be best for that. So, it was really tough. There's a lot of rules. My parents were never ones to be like, lights out by like 10 p.m. or, stuff like that. So it was really kind of hard getting used to, just because I was so used to my parents being, loving and supportive, and, not that they weren't like, not that they didn't have rules, but like, it was just like a very different, like just living situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say I really struggled at boarding school mentally, because it was so weird. I actually never talked about this on a podcast, but it's like, I was the new girl and I was getting all this attention. Finally, people were calling me pretty, and everyone was like, oh my God, the new girl. Everywhere I looked, it was like people were staring at me. And like when I went into the like dining hall, like staring at me. So for a while I was like, oh, this is kind of cool, like getting this all attention. But of course, like a shiny new toy, things get old. And,
Right.
When I was a junior in high school, I was really struggling. I really struggled with kind of my self-worth, but also just mentally because I like didn't really know where I fit in because I kind of had like two groups of friends, but then I also had a boyfriend and he like was kind of in the one group. So it was always hard because I was always trying to balance my time with everyone and, trying to figure out where I kind of really fit in because even when it was like, oh, like you guys all have learning disabilities, it still wasn't like I felt like I always fit in. Like, there have been so many times like in my life where I've felt like I just like was invisible and sometimes I felt that way, because I felt like I didn't really matter because I felt like people already had their friends and, had their groups. Though I did find a few really good friends, I still, really struggled. And, struggled also too because, not everyone was nice to me. And
Right.
so that was hard because, it's like, okay, like, what did I do to you? But in that regard, like, I'm so over it because I'm like, you know what? It was high school, it was so long ago. But yeah, I just was really kind of tough. You had study hall, dining hall, like check-ins, all that stuff. And I'll call myself out. I used to get a lot of dress code violations just because I would wear a sweater and a scarf instead of the blazer and like a button-down shirt. I would always do the sweater and the scarf. But I was like, hey, these are cute. So I would always do that. But yeah, it was, wow, what an experience.
Right. Right. And so then let's kind of fast forward a bit to your car accident.
hmm
Um, what happened, and then how did that become the turning point for you?
Yeah, so basically it was March 15th, 2020, and I unfortunately liked this guy at the time. He told me to come to a party. I went. Then when we left, he was like, "Oh, do you want to come with me and my friend?" So I'm like, "Sure, whatever. What's, one small car ride?" And I was in the back seat middle, and I remember that his friend like turned to me and said something about like how he was like talking to this other girl or whatever. And I was like, "This is so stupid. Why am I here?" I was like so annoyed. And then I whip my head around and I see we're about to die. And then suddenly nothing matters except for the fact that like this is it. We're gonna die. So then everyone's screaming, "We're gonna die. This is it." Like I just remember like the screams and everything and we got hit and it was a hit and run and they never found, the guy or person or whoever. And
Wow.
that was definitely hard at first to let go because, obviously like, I try to always be a very kind person, but like I was like you deserve what's coming. You know what I mean? Like you literally like could have killed us. And everyone was alive, thank God, but we all did suffer injuries and we all kind of, it was very traumatic for all of us in different ways, I'm sure. But yeah, it kind of came down to the point where I just realized after that it was kind of my second chance at life. And that was my chance to kind of, use my voice because, I still have nightmares of the flashback and, what could have been gone through the windshield and died. Like, and I'm a Christian and I believed it was God giving me my second chance at life. And I always tell people, I'm like, I don't ever tell people what to believe or what to do. But when people ask me what it is for me, it really is faith because, I truly do believe like I was always Christian, but it wasn't until that car accident that everything pivoted in my whole entire life. And I just realized what was important and what really mattered. And just all of a sudden, the only thing that mattered was my family and my friends and my cats. And that's it, And so it was like a whole shift right before my senior year. Then, you're dealing with this concussion, you're trying to graduate, you're trying to do all this stuff, and then COVID cancels it and it sucks. But like, because I have the most amazing family, amazing sister, perfect example, she surprised me with a home graduation with my best friends and closest friends and family. And she even did the podium, she did the cap and gown, the whole thing. It was honestly the
Wow.
nicest thing someone has ever done for me. It was so sweet. I was so like shocked. Like I was like, wait, what? Because I was always talking about how like sad I was like, I'm not gonna walk. And I
Mm.
always tried to graduate in 4 years because, I was miserable my freshman year, but I was like, I still want to do it in 4 years. And it was for no other reason, just to prove it to myself that I could do it. So it was just really special that she, took the time to do all that, contact all my friends and everyone and be like, here, like, surprise. And it was really, really special. It was almost better than what commencement would have been.
Pardon the interruption. If you're liking the show so far, please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell. It really means a lot to me. It helps grow the show and the channel and to the show. Right, right. And it is interesting that when something like that happens, that it just changes our whole perspective of an accident and to be what really matters. And I think, I don't want people to have to go through a traumatic experience
Yeah.
or anything like that. But we really need to think about in the whole scheme of life, like what really matters, what really is important. And I used to get angry about a lot of different things. Like little things would make me angry. And now I just think with so many things, I'm just like, really, does it matter? Like,
What do you think is the most
whatever.
important thing to you? Like when you think about it, like what's your like top?
My more most important, like obviously relationships with my family and my friends are important. And then it's experiences, like life experiences. Like I love traveling. I've lived in 5 countries. And I've traveled to I think about 50 countries now. And
Wow.
so I love having experiences and it is meeting people. And through all that, I've realized like generally everybody wants the same thing. People, they want to be safe, they want to be happy, they want to enjoy time with their family, friends, and then like food, clothing, shelter. They want the basics to be met to live comfortably, wherever that is. Like everybody wants that. And it's unfortunate that with the media and the news and things like that, like they really and YouTube channels and sometimes podcasts and things as well, that kind of really want more of the fear and the arguing and the bad and the this is what's going to happen. And it's really unfortunate because of all those travels that I've had. Sure, there are some bad apples in every country around the world. Like that's just the way it is. But that's such a small amount of people. And if we actually realized that, we all want the same kind of thing and really to be open, because another big thing that I learned with it all is my beliefs and my thoughts, they aren't right, but they aren't wrong. They're just mine because of my experience. And if I would have been taken at 2 or 3 years old as a child and moved to another country halfway around the world, my thoughts and beliefs would be different solely because what I'm taught, what I'm told, and what I experience. And so I love having conversations with people that have different beliefs than I do because I just want to know why. Like, why do you think that? Why do you believe that? And when they can actually explain why they think things and why they believe things, I just find it very interesting. And a lot of times I have conversations that end with, if I had that experience, I would believe exactly what you believe. However, because my experience was this, I'm going to stick with my belief and keep it because it was my experience, but I can fully understand why you think and believe that. And it's just so opening to basically how we all kind of want the same things and it's not a right or wrong. It's not anything like that. And I think we're just too focused on right and wrong. You're
Yeah.
my friend and you agree with me on everything, or we're enemies. And
It's
it's
not
just
like
not
that.
right.
No,
It's just not like that.
no, it's really not. And like, it is a good thing that you brought up just like differences. It's like, I always tell people, I'm like, I never tell you what to believe, but I'm just saying, like, find something to believe in, whether it's God, higher power, whatever it is for you, find something to believe in. Because when you believe in something, you have purpose. You're living for a
Right.
purpose. And I think that that's so important that everyone finds something to believe in because it's like, yes, my experiences have made me, even more like faith is very important to me. But, it is also interesting, like you said, to hear from like different sides because, everyone has different lived experiences. And I think that's so crazy that it's like our lived experiences are what make us who we are.
Hmm. And it's so crazy that if, especially politics and religion, those are the ones that, people get in most disputes about and can be polar opposites. But I have some of my closest friends, we don't agree on politics, and we'll have conversations about politics, but we can have conversations,
Yeah.
right? We sit down and we talk, and it's like, oh, so and so did this, or this is what's going on. And it's interesting because sometimes it is we just disagree. And that's fine. And we'll just say, you know what, let's just agree to disagree. No problem. When we talk about something else. Other times we realize that sometimes it's just our own interpretation. Well, somebody did this or said this, and I might say, oh, well, that means this. And my friend will say, well, no, it means this. And then we kind of talk about it. And then at times we both say, I need to look into that a little bit more because, especially with politics, they can say things that can be really gray and lead to interpretation that can be very different. And so I just think it's interesting to have that. And people should be having conversations about politics and about religion openly and just asking, why do you think
Without it
that?
being
Why do you believe it? Not hateful at all, because there's always
But we
in
can't
all
do that
things,
anymore as a society, which is
I
really
know.
sad.
But we need to change that. Like, and
Exactly.
I'm on like, we need to change that because even in all of those, there are threads of the same thing. So even though with my friends in politics that we generally don't agree, there's always things in politics that we do agree on.
Hmm.
And there's same things if you look at religion, all the different religions, and I don't know a lot about all the religions, but I know with a lot of them, there are things that interweave and are very similar and intertwine to each other. And then of course there's some things that are very different as well, but there's still a lot of similarities between it. And if we work on those similarities and we talk to people about those similarities and a little bit about the differences and to why, just for understanding, not to change a mind, not to convince, but just to understand why and be open and think, wow, if I lived that life, if I had that experience, I can understand why somebody thinks, feels, says, does. I may not agree with it. I may, still not like it, whatever, but at least I can understand.
Yeah. I think that's the thing is like understanding, agree to disagree, but without it being so hateful. Because the problem is social media and everything going on these days has just made everything hateful. And, it breaks my heart to hear about those, school shootings. Like that was not something I had to deal with when I was a kid. And
Neither did
now to
I.
think that it's like like I don't even have words. You know what I
I
mean? Like
know.
I'm like, how do you think that that's remotely an okay behavior to believe that whatever like horrid thing you believe to make you do that? And I
Right.
really think like I wish more people had your mindset because it's so true. It's like we all have different opinions, different stories, different experiences. But why can't we just talk about it without screaming at each other, without being like saying hateful things or like saying words that you're going to regret? Like why is it that everything is so black and white and no one's understanding the fact that like it really is a gray area, and that's the
Yeah.
truth.
Absolutely. The gray area is more than black and white. Very few things are actually, in my opinion, like black and white.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate now too that we take clips of things and we hear little comments or bullet points. And what's the context around it? And an example is, friend and I were talking today about another friend's family, and her dad gives her mom an allowance. And it's a certain amount of money, and it's quite a bit of money. And my friend says that's ridiculous that she's getting this amount of money and everything. And I said, well, let's wait a minute. Like, but what is paid for? Is she having to pay the mortgage, vehicle payments, vacations? Like, from my understanding, those things are all paid for. And her quote allowance, as it's been called, is for her to do whatever she wants. She can get her hair done, maybe buy the groceries, do her nails, whatever. I'm like, so we've just heard that there is an allowance given of X amount. Could, like, however you want to look at it. I said, if certainly if everything needs to be paid for out of that allowance, no, it's not right. It's not
Yeah.
good. But if everything is already paid for and that's the allowance to just for her spending money to do whatever she wants with, I'm like, I would be okay with that if that was me. And so we need more context, not just the she gets an allowance of X amount and is it right or not? And then some people are going to probably think that's awful and nobody deserves an allowance. Like, but if you like, that's your choice.
Yeah.
It's everything isn't a choice. And what is okay for me, I don't think that it's going to be okay for everybody else. Now, if I was in that situation, I mean, and I'll be honest too. I mean, the people that we're talking about she's 70 and he's 80. So it's not like they're
Yeah.
young people and things going on. So again, it's the context we have to look at and see. And too much are just clips, bullet points, and we
Clips aren't
need
enough.
more information. Pardon the interruption. If you're enjoying this episode and you're someone who values performance, clarity, and personal growth, then you're going to love my Mind Matters weekly newsletter. Every week, I send out a quick, powerful piece designed to help high achievers like you master your mindset, upgrade your habits, and lead with more clarity and fulfillment. It's not fluff, it's science backed, actionable, and easy to digest. It as your weekly reset button to realign with the leader you're becoming. So if you want to go deeper than what we've covered here on the show, then head over to www.sallypederson.com. That's me, and subscribe. Your next breakthrough just might be one email away. Now back to the show.
And that just ruins it. Like you see it all the time in social media too. They try to pit women against each other. They try to, do this and that. Like I can't even tell you how many times I'll just like go on my TikTok and I'll be like, oh, 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 what are you getting out of this except for being hateful? You're putting clips together that make it look like these women are pitted against each other. And someone I greatly, greatly admire is Selena Gomez because she uses her platform for good. And I think that's truly amazing thing because that's like honestly like such a great way to use it. And the fact that she was so open about her mental health and everything she was going through, like it helped me be more open about my mental health and it helped me kind of take mental health more seriously because seeing that I wasn't alone and seeing that someone who, not because of who she is, but just her heart and seeing that someone's heart also understood what I was going through, it was like you feel less alone. And I think that like everyone just needs to stop pitting everyone against each other or like putting celebrity versus normal people because quite frankly, the only reason that people are different is like you said, different experiences, different opportunities. And so I just think that like, one day I do hope that I can have a platform where I'm like, listen, like I was here. I was not cool in high school. I was not invited to the parties. Guys didn't like me. Girls didn't want to be friends with me. Like it was just kind of like, okay, where do I really fit in here? And, now I see it as like, okay, you know what? You saved yourself from some probably bad experiences. And I think it's like when we reflect, when we look back and we're like, oh, wait, maybe I should be more mindful of what I say. But I also just feel like people think it's okay to say whatever and have no ramifications for their actions. Like the cyberbullying and the bullying is, as a public speaker, I have, talked to school counselors and they have said, like cyberbullying is a real issue. And I'm like, how do you stop it? And they were like, it's really hard because when it's not on the area, like on the campus, it's kind of like, okay, like, but at the same time, of course, like, they have to take action. So it's just really interesting how, people just don't even have that sort of mindset or that mature sense of like, oh, yeah, maybe I shouldn't say that, or oh, maybe that person is going through something. Like people think that they can say whatever they want to like celebrities, but quite frankly, I guarantee you that stuff hurts them too. And it's not
Oh,
fair.
absolutely. They're people.
Yeah.
They're just people too. They're only the way that
Yes.
I view a celebrity and an athlete or anybody, like I'm not starstruck by anybody. I just think you're just really good at your job. And there's a
Mm,
lot of CEOs and founders and things that are not famous that are also really good at their job. You're nothing more than really good at your job. Congratulations. That's it. You're still a person. You still get sick. You still have
yeah.
feelings. You still get sad. Like you still do everything I do. You just have a much bigger house and a bigger bank account, and you're followed a lot more and stalked more and things that I would not even want. So you're still just a person.
Yeah. Yes. See, that's the thing is everyone is a person. And that's the thing. Like one day I do hope I can like thank Selena and just give her a hug and be like, thank you for everything. Like you just who you are as a person has just you've changed so many lives. And I don't even know if you realize how many lives you've helped and saved. But it's just like that's the thing is like one day I do want to have that platform so I can show people that like, listen, like I wasn't cool and I came up to here, and it's not about the following or the number of people. It's about helping that one person. It's about saving that one life. And I do, like you said, like I'm the same way. I'm like, I don't care who you are. My first question is, are you a nice person? Because it doesn't matter who you are. If you're not a nice person, then that's not like, I don't know. It's just like, I feel like it's just not that hard to be kind. And so, like, no matter who anyone is or what they've done in their life, it's like you still should treat people with kindness and respect and not talk down to anyone or think that someone's below you or whatever. Because at the end of the day, like that stuff doesn't matter.
No, no, it really doesn't. And just because you're really good at one thing, maybe, and it's something that I'm not good at, well, there's probably things that I'm good at that you're not good at,
Right.
which I mean, makes sense. I mean, we're all different. We're all good at certain things and we're all not good at things. And we're just, we're individuals. And so knowing that, and I always say, even if I'm out at like a dinner party or something like that, and there's somebody there that I don't like, I can still be polite. I can still be nice. I can still say hello, how are you? And just have a polite but short conversation. And it's not because of that person. Like it's because I can be nice, but for me, it's because it's respect for all the other people around. I'm not going to be rude or say something mean or make people uncomfortable because I respect the other people that are in the room, even if I don't like one person. Right. And so to me, it makes like, it's not hard to be polite.
No, it's really not. And I think like that's the thing is, there's a maturity level that I think people forget. It's like, because that's the truth is there's always going to be people around you who you don't like. I mean, and I feel like it's like at that point you still just like you don't get hateful. You don't just go like, oh, screw you, or like you just kind of coexist and live your life and be like, okay, like if they're there, they're there. But like the truth is, and this is something I had to learn the hard way, not everyone's going to like you. And that's okay because the people who do like you are your people. And you should only be focusing on your people and not the outside noise. Focus on your tunnel vision with your friends, with your family. Like, who cares about the noise? It's just noise. That's all it is. It's just people who are not, maybe don't agree with you or maybe don't like you for whatever reason. And quite frankly, I always used to try to make everyone like me. And I realize now that was so exhausting because now it's like I know what I do is because what I love what I do and genuinely because I want to help people not feel that pain, that pit in your stomach when you're sitting home on a Friday night and you're scrolling your Twitter and you're seeing everyone's at the football game and you're not there and no one invited you and the girls that you thought you were going to go with actually end up talking bad about you. And it's just like it doesn't ever end. And so it's like, it really comes down to the mindset of like, I have to understand that there's always going to be situations and people that don't like me. I mean, I've had more nice comments about my book than negative. So I don't focus on the negative because I think that's the thing is you can spiral. It's so easy to spiral. But you can't because like I said, like even if everyone doesn't like you, whatever, you have your people that do love you, that do have your back. And that's all that matters. And that's what I always say to my friends now too. I'm like, you know what? I don't care if people don't like us because I have you guys and you guys are everything to me. Like my best friends, like we would all die for each other. Like that is how like much of a bond we have. And so to me, it's like, okay, so if someone's going to say something bad about us or one of us, and I'm just going to be like, okay, like you clearly like have your own issues. Like, please go to therapy.
And as we get older, we also realize too, it's quality of friendship, not quantity, right? It's that quality. And another thing was something I heard, I'm pretty sure it was from Gary V was the first time that I kind of heard it, when he was talking about haters and negative comments and things like that. And he was saying like, he feels bad for people who leave negative comments about him because he thinks like, how bad of a place are you in your life that you're writing like, you suck, you're an idiot, you're stupid, you blah, blah, like whatever the comments are or the paragraph negative stuff. He says, you took the time out of your day to say negative things about me. Like, how bad of a place are you in your life? And I feel sorry for those people who write bad things about me, because people who are doing well, people who are happy, people who are working on their goals and their dreams and stuff, they don't have time to write negative comments about stuff. Like, even as
Yeah, who
I'm going
has
through and
time?
I see something that I don't agree with, I'm not like typing negative. I'm just like, meh, next. You go through,
Yeah,
like, if I'm scrolling or whatever, or reading a blog post or something that I don't agree with, I don't go in there and start writing all this negative stuff. I'm just like, oh, okay, I don't agree. So delete, next, whatever, move on. But I
yeah,
don't have time to be writing negative stuff. I'm working on things. Like, I'm moving towards stuff, not being
yeah.
negative.
Yeah. And that's the thing is like they're caught up in this negative mindset and stuff. And something that actually does come to mind when you talk about negative comments. I made this one video once talking about how like being a 10 is a mindset, about how like at the end of the day, beauty is from your heart. It's from who you are as a person. It's how you treat people, being kind to yourself, really everything. And I think that, it was so crazy because I posted it and like I was fine, whatever. And then I got this comment that was like so mean. And I was basically saying I wasn't a 10. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to leave that comment. You know
Yeah.
why? Because I feel bad for you that you think that you need to go hate on someone when you probably look like a thumb.
Mm.
That's
Or
the
you're feeling
mindset.
like you do, or you at least
Yeah.
feel like you do,
Yeah.
like, if that's, you're feeling so down on yourself that putting me down makes you feel better.
Yeah.
Like, that's really a sad position to be in.
Oh,
And
for
then
sure.
and I've had sometimes some comments of different things, and I've just left them. And then I have people, other followers or people that see videos and stuff like that, will respond to those comments too. And I'm just like, well, I'll just let the conversation flow, because you're not really affecting me. At first, the first few times when people did, I was like, oh
Yeah, me
no,
too.
maybe, like, it's at first, but over time, and realizing, like, after listening to what Gary Vaynerchuk would say about those types of comments, and just getting used to it. And I just thought, well, and you know what? If that's your opinion, that's your opinion. You have a right to your opinion. But if you're taking the time to be negative, I'm not even going to bother, because I can't be bothered. Like, I
Yeah.
want to focus on doing other things. And so you're not hurting my feelings now. You're not making me think twice or stop. It's just like, okay, that's how you feel, or, oh, you're really in a bad place and I feel bad for you, but I'm just going to keep on doing my thing.
Yeah, I always tell like even some of my other friends, I say, you should you should really just comment and be like, thank you so much for the comment because you're actually boosting my algorithm. Because
Well,
here's
that
the thing,
too.
kindness. And I just think that that's the thing is like it comes down to that, and when people treat you like shit, that doesn't mean you go and treat them like shit. Like there have been
Right.
so many people in my life, like so many like guys, peasants, just like friends, ex-friends, like who have made me like be like, oh wow, like maybe I do suck. Maybe they're right. Maybe that is negative. But like when you surround yourself with positive people, you don't really care when people are saying negative things, whether it's in person or online, because I don't know, it's just having this kind of worth of yourself. And also
Right.
too, like this goes back to, so I love Mel Robbins. I think she's
Mhm.
awesome. And I got the Let Them Theory book, and I just think it's so cool because it's basically, I wish I had this mindset when I was in high school, but it's basically like saying, like, basically just let go, like, let
Yeah.
them. And then let me focus my energy on something that's not important or something that is important. Like let me
Mhm.
focus my energy on something that's going to be meaningful and put my energy towards something that's good. And I think that's just like such a great thing because it is so true. You can't control what people do, but all you can do is you can control how you react and how you handle situations. And, I think that's the biggest thing is, being able to have that, those coping mechanisms where you're like, I'm not going to go off. I'm just going to let it go, And I think that that's kind of where it comes down to is like finding the healthy coping to be like, listen, like, I'm going to go write, like, people are being mean. Okay, whatever. I'm going to write a song about it. Like, it's just finding outlets to take
Right.
on that energy and get rid of that energy and turn it into positive. I mean, that's literally kind of what I did with my book. I turned a horrible situation into a life-changing situation and hopefully something that can help even one person.
Right. And everybody, like, we need to feel sad because then we don't know happy, but we don't want to stay sad for long, right? So we feel that. And our feelings get hurt because, we were left out of going somewhere we thought we'd be invited to, or somebody says something, and it's okay to have those feelings. We don't want to be stuck in them. And as you said, it's like, okay, that happened. Well, then I'm going to whatever it may be and use it as a positive. And so I find like we want to have all those feelings, but if we get stuck in something for too long, then it starts to become our personality, and then we become negative, and then we find more negative, which then it's that snowball effect. And we need to have good outlets and good people. And what I say, like Mel Robbins has the let them. I just say, well, you know what? You do you. You do you. I'll do me, and that's fine. Whatever it will be, because as you said, the only thing we can control is how we respond or react to situations. Like there's so much in life that we have no control over, nothing at all, except for how we respond.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk a little bit about your book.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about how the book came about and where people can find it.
Yeah, so, it really kind of came about after my car accident. Like I said, it kind
Mhm.
of made me think that it was like my second chance at life. And I wasn't gonna hold that lightly. I wasn't gonna be like, oh, like let me just not do anything about it. But I just thought, I struggled a lot growing up with like mental health issues with like depression, anxiety, and unfortunately self-harm too. And I just realized, I was doing better at this point, but I wasn't doing amazing. And
Mhm.
2020, the January of 2020, my sister actually came home, when I had my last episode. And she really said, like, what life do you want for yourself? And that hit me so hard because I wanted to be happy. That was what I wanted. And so after that is when I started to take therapy seriously. But only a couple months later, when I'm like, doing all right, is when I get in the car accident. And that night, I just remember like feeling like, well, the worst part is when I was on the hospital gurney waiting to see if I had a brain bleed or not. And that was what was scary because I was like, oh, I'm either going to die. This is my last, like, I'm going to die, or I can get through this and this is going to be a part of my story and it's going to help me be stronger. But just knowing and not knowing what was going to happen, it was like so horrifying and just terrifying. And I just remember being like, I really just want to live. I want to live. And then, a couple weeks after the car accident, I was sitting there and I was like, wait a second. I've almost faced death not once, but twice. Once by choice, and once just praying that I'd make it out of there alive. And so I knew that like that meant something because I was just like thinking of the number two for a couple days before that. I still remember I was watching How I Met Your Mother, and all of a sudden the number two comes in my head. And I'm just thinking two for like a couple days. And that's what kind of led me to realize that. So I was like, wait, this isn't a coincidence. There's something here. So I actually called my friend who had already written a book a couple years prior, and she always said, "You should tell your story. You should like." And I was like, "No, I don't want people to know my stuff. I'm never going to tell anyone like my story." And then after the car accident, I said, "What should I do it?" And she said, "Go for it." And it just kind of was like the most therapeutic, healing thing I've ever done in my entire life because it wasn't about writing this book to be anything more than to even help that one person. Even if it's one copy sold, that person, it will change their life. It will help them. It will save their life. And that's what it really comes down to for me, is not about any of the things that come with it, but it was like truly about how can I make a difference? Because I have not used my voice for so long. And if you ask people from like my past and stuff years ago, they'd probably be like, wait, I don't recognize who she is now, because it's like I'm just a much more confident person. And I'm also just much like, I just definitely more self aware too. And I think that all that just goes hand in hand together. And I just like, I don't know. I feel lucky that I actually have that mindset now because now I can like enjoy life and not be in that negative cycle that I was in for so long because, you kind of said it earlier, but it's like, once you get in that like mindset, it's hard to get out of it. And so like once you get
Right.
comfortable being depressed, you really struggle, and you have to push yourself out of it. But that's where it comes down to buying into the help. And if someone gives you the opportunity to get help, don't think it's stupid. Don't laugh. Don't think it's dumb. I mean, I know I did that, but like, this is why I'm telling you not to. Because if you actually do it and you continually do it, it'll change your mind, like mindset and everything. And I remember my therapist taught me the deep three, which is the breathing method. And basically, I started doing it whenever I would like panic. So basically, like you just stop and you take 3 deep breaths. So you literally just like go like stop, and then you go 1, and then you go 2, and then you go 3. And the more I did that, the more I realized that that was like becoming an essential part of like saving me from panic attacks, you know? And I can't even tell you, like, I've gotten some friends onto it, and like I've told like friends and family about it too. Like, just try it. Like, try it multiple times because it will kind of help you. Like, it'll be like a second nature thing for whenever you're like stressed or anxious or panicked.
Mm-hmm.
And that has changed my life forever. And I'm just like so grateful that my therapist was my therapist, because she honestly was a huge part of saving me from myself.
Well, and sometimes it is just little things that will make a difference in the moment. Like we tend to think that we have to make all these massive, grand changes to be happy and to deal with things and to work things out. But when reality comes down to it's a number of little things that make a big difference in it. And as you said, you know, if you're feeling that anxiety, or for somebody who's starting to feel anger, that there are different breathing techniques, and then also figuring out what works best for each person, because there's a number of different breathing techniques
Mhm.
that are used, and it's just who you are as a person and how you're getting, how fast that anxiety or anger or something comes on. Those different types of breathing techniques, the different length of time that you breathe in, you hold the breath, or you exhale,
Yeah, it's
will
like what
vary
works.
for you. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And it's good. And it's just sometimes those things that'll be like, okay, that just kind of stops what's happening for a few seconds to be like, okay, no, we're not gonna go that way. We're gonna stay calm, or we're gonna breathe, and we're gonna keep doing what we need to do without letting that anger or that anxiety take over. And so there's lots of things, I think, too, for New Year's as a prime example. People say, I'm going to change, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to do this and this and this. And it's so many things where it's hard to do a lot at one time. Um, so sometimes it is just like start with those little things, one thing at a time, have that new routine, or that new tool that we use. And then once we're used to doing that, another one, and then another one. And then those changes can help over time, and help us stick with it, because it's new patterns, right? We're rewiring the brain with new coping mechanisms, new tools, new things. And it takes a bit, especially if we've been doing the same thing for 20, 30, 40 years. To change that, it takes time to rewire the brain, to not go down the rabbit hole or the way we used to go, and to change that.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Carolyn, your book is called Unbreakable.
Yes, it's right here.
You have a copy there. Very nice.
Yes.
And where can people find your book?
You can find it on my website, carolynsophia.com. And then you also can find it on Amazon. But if you do find it on Amazon, type in like my name, Carolyn Sophia, rather than Unbreakable, because people have gotten like weird stuff, like blasted and stuff. So I don't know. I don't know.
Well, we'll make sure that we have the link to the book in the show notes, and to your website as well, to make it easy so people get the right thing, and they can get your book. But I just want to say thank you, Carolyn, so much for your time today. It was really a pleasure speaking with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.